Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the session. Right, I hope my voice is clearly audible. You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. All right, great. Great. All right, guys. So from today onwards, today we are going to discuss about a few more functions in Excel, right? Okay. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Once again. Yes. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So yes, guys. Today we are going to discuss a few more functions in Excel, right? That will help you to analyze the data, right? So let's proceed ahead with the discussions. Let me share my screen. All right. So basically, if you want to, let's say, let me just walk you through, right? If you want to explore formulas in Excel, what you can do is you can directly go to this formulas bar in your tab menu or in your menu bar, right? If you click on this, there are multiple formulas, those are available, right? You can simply, let's say, click on the subsection of formula. Like for example, here once I'm clicking on financial, it will show me all the financial functions that can be used, right? In the similar way, if I'm clicking on this logical, it gives me all the logical functions that can be used, and so on and so forth, right? So text functions, functions related to date and time, right? Functions related to lookup and references. Then we have functions related to mathematics and trigonometry, right? Then we have more additional functions, like we have statistical functions. These are a few statistical functions that can be used. Then we have engineering related functions. You can simply go through any of these functions and to understand how these functions work and what are the inputs or what format of inputs are required to for these functions to work in the correct way, right? Then we have cube related functions, we have information related functions, we have compatibility related functions, and also we have web related functions as well. Right? You can search something on the website and then you can input the value according to the results that you're getting. Right. So for like for these kind of functions, you simply have to add you simply have to integrate this to your Excel, right? These are not available. Web related functions are not available by default. You need to add this to work on these functions. All right. All right. So let me just give you a few examples. For example, let's say if I want to use, let's walk through, let's give us a walkthrough through through the text related functions that can be used. All right. So let's say, for example, let me insert a column here. Right. So here we'll be seeing a few of the text related functions that can be used. Right. So let's start with, let's not go very far, but let's start with the find function. Right. So find function, what it does is it will locate the uh, it will locate one text string inside another text string. All right. So let's say, for example, if I use the find function here, right? So, okay, let's not work this way. Let's work this way so that you get an idea. So I'm using the find function, right? And you can read the description of this find function, how exactly this function works, right? So it will basically return you the starting position of one text string within another text string, right? And find function is case sensitive, which means uppercase and lowercase work very differently. All right. So let's say I have to input text here, right? So find text, this is the first parameter. Within text is the second parameter, and starting number is the third parameter that we need to input. All right. So you don't have to learn each and every function here. You basically have to learn how a particular function works, right? So once you are able to learn how to use functions in Excel, you can basically learn any new function as and when it is required, right? So practically it is not possible to learn each and every function in Excel. You just have to build an understanding how functions can be used, right? So as soon as let's say I click here, these are the inputs, those are required in the find function, right? So you just have to understand what kind of inputs are required to get the output, right? And you can also read the doc string here, which basically tells you what this particular function exactly does. All right. So you can basically the first input that is required here. All right. So, okay, I can see a few of you are mentioning that this particular function is not working in your version of Excel. I've already informed the solution to this. You have to upgrade your Excel to the latest version. All right. Any software, any tool that you're using, use the latest version of it, because all the functionalities and latest, uh, let's say all the latest updates are installed in the latest version. For example, the application that you use in your mobile phones, you don't use an outdated version. For example, let's say the version that was let's say launched in 2016 or 2017, you update your applications on regular basis, right? In the similar way, softwares and tools have to be upgraded from time to time so that all the latest functionalities you will be able to use. All right, so always use the latest version. You'll be able to use all the functions that we are discussing in the live sessions. All right, and you just need to understand that if I am able to use in my version of Excel, which basically means you should also be able to use it in your version of Excel, right? If you're not able to use that any function in Excel, then this basically means that you're using an outdated version of Microsoft Excel. So you need to upgrade your Excel version. All right. Now let's proceed ahead with the discussions of how find function works here. So find function will basically search for a particular substring in a given string, right? So string is basic nothing but any text format of data is a string, and your all right. So let's proceed ahead discussing about the find function. So it requires three parameters. This is the first parameter, which is find text. This in this particular parameter, you need to input what string or what text you need to find. All right. And within text, you have to input the text in which you want to find that particular string that you have mentioned in find text, right? And start number is basically the position at which you want to start, right? So start number is an optional here, right? Anything that you see mentioned inside the square brackets is optional parameter, right? If you wish to input you can proceed ahead. If you do not wish to input, it will start from the default number, which is from the first position, right? So what we'll do is, let's try to find out the location of, let's say, in this particular name, let's try to find out, see, this is the employee name, right? So what we'll do is, we'll try to find out the location of a substring into this given string, right? So how this can be done? Let me input the values here, right? The text that I want to input here is, let's say, let's find the position of well, right? Let's find the position of well here, and the text, within text, I'm going to mention the name of the employee, right? And start number, let's leave it as it is as of now, right? So it will start from the first character of the string, right? So it will basically return you the starting position of the text, or the starting position where WELL appears, right? So here, if you see, the name Bella is 5 letters long, then we have a space in between, then we have capital P and a single O, right? So these are 5 plus 1, which is a white space, followed by two more characters, which is P and O, right? So 5 plus 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8, right? So this is the ninth position where this cell is, WELL is starting, or W of well is starting, right? So this will give you the location, right? It will give you the index location at which this particular text is starting, right? So let's execute this and check if we are getting the correct output or not, right? So we are getting 9 as the output. All right, so we are getting 9 as the output, which basically says BELLA is 5 letters long, right? So this is 5, followed by a white space, which is 6. P is at 7th position, O is at 8th position, and W is starting from the 9th position, which is why you are getting the output as 9 here, because we haven't mentioned the starting number here, right? So starting number will start from 1, right? V is present at first index location. All right. If you mention the starting position, let's say I mentioned the starting position as, let's say, 5 plus 1, 6. All right. So I'll mention the starting position as 7. Now the 9 that you were getting the output earlier, it will basically be changed from 9 to 2. All right. So let's check the output. Is 9. All right. So all right, so this is basically, all right, so yeah, so this is basically the output that we are getting. Let me remove this as of now, right? So this is basically the output we are getting, and WELL is basically starting as the index position of 9, right? So guys, I hope my voice is clearly audible and it's not breaking. You can simply raise your hands to confirm this, if my voice is clearly audible and it's not breaking. All right. So let's proceed ahead, right? As the voice is not breaking up. So let's proceed ahead. Okay, so let me just give you a walkover for those of you who are not able to hear this. So here basically in find function, we can basically find the location of any exact location of any text within a text, right? So basically it's clear like how this works is we basically try to find the location of a substring inside a string, right? And string is basically any text form of data. All right. So this will basically give you the index location, right? So for example, let's take this particular example here. All right. And this example is the name of the employee, and the name of the employee is Bella Powell. All right. Now here, what we are trying to do is we are trying to find the location of, let's replace this well to W, right? So we'll get the same output here. Right. So here, we are basically trying to find the location of W into this particular name, right? So if you see, all right. So if you see here, Bella is 5 letters long, right? I hope nobody has confusion in this, that Bella is 5 letters long. So this is basically starting from index location 1, where B is present at location 1, E is present at location 2. The first L here is present at location 3. The second L in Bella is present at location 4. A is present at location 5. Then we have a white space, right? So white space also carries a character. So white space is at location 6. Capital P here is present at location 7. This O is present at location 8 and W is present at location 9. So this is exactly what this find function gives you as the output. All right. So this way you can basically find a substring inside a string, right? So for example, let's take an example where we can use a complete text here, right? So, okay, so what I'll do here is, let's say I'll simply mention that I am learning, let's say, Microsoft Excel, and in future, I am going to learn about machine learning and data science. Right, so this is the string here. Right, this is the string. What I'll do here is I'm going to use the find function here, right? And what I'm going to find is, let me find out where machine learning is present, right? Or let's find where Excel is present, right? So I'll simply mention Excel. This is the string that I want to find, right? Followed by within text is basically the text into which I want to find this particular substring, which is Excel, right? So this is the text where I want to find Excel, the location of Excel, right? I'll close this bracket and execute this. It is present at 25th location, right? It is present at 25th location. You can basically check in the formula bar here, right? So here I is present at location 1, right? You can basically start counting from left to right. You'll get that Excel is present at 25th location, right? So let's try and count this. So I is 1 character long. So this is 1, followed by a white space, which is 2. A and am is 2 characters long. So 2 plus 2 is 4, followed by another white space, which is 5. Then learning is basically 8 characters long. So 8 plus 5 is 13, followed by a white space, which is 14, followed by Microsoft, which is 9 characters long, right? So this is 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, plus 8 is 13, 13 plus 1 is 14, 14 plus 9 is 23, right? followed by a white space, which is 24, and then the E of Excel starts, right? So E of Excel starts from at 25th location. This is exactly what find is giving me as the output. All right. So of course, Control F will also give you the same output, but it will only find, and basically it will help you to find any particular keyword into the complete worksheet, right? But if you want to store the results somewhere, then you have to use the find function, right? In the similar way, uh, in the similar way, all right. So guys, it's advised for everyone to please focus in this session, right? Otherwise, every time I'm explaining, one of you is coming back and saying to re-explain the same function again. I'm just explaining this for the last time, the find function. All right. So here, if you look at this find function, this is the name of the function. I hope nobody has, nobody has confusion in this. This is the name of the function. You can directly use it. This is the word that I'm trying to find, right? Excel is the word, and I want to find the location of this particular word, right? So when you learn how you can deal with text form of data, the location of any word is very important in the analysis, right? You learn this in natural language processing when you'll be processing the text format of data, right? So the location of any particular word is very important, and your machine will basically help you in building machine learning models on the text-based data by finding the location of that particular word in a given document, right? So any sentence, right? So any sentence that you're using is basically considered as a document, right? So the technical term is document for this. So for example, here, this is this particular text that I've written here, right? I'm learning Microsoft Excel, and in future, I'm going to learn about machine learning and data science. This is considered as one single document. Right? In technical terms, it is considered as one single document. So for everyone's, let me just wrap this text, right? So this is your text here. This is your text here. And I'm trying to find the location of the word Excel into this, right? And it is present at 25th location. All right. So this is how your find function works. Right. So this is how your find function works. Right. So this is how your find function works. Now, let's say I'll just mention that this is for the word Excel. Let's find for the word learning, right? So the word learning, right? Learning is appearing basically twice, right? The first time it's appearing is I am learning. This is the first learning that is appearing. And second is the word learning in machine learning, right? So if I try to find the location of the word learning, right, using the find function, it will basically, let's try to find the word learning into this particular text, right? So now let's take words, right? So this particular learning will give me the location of this learning, which is appearing before Microsoft, or will it give me the location of the word learning that is appearing as a part of machine learning, right? So let's take votes for this. I want every one of you to raise your hands if you think the word learning that is appearing before Microsoft will get the location of this particular word when I'm running the find function on it. You can raise your hands if you think I'll get the first learning word from this find function. All right. I'm lowering everyone's hands now. Right. And I want every one of you to raise your hands if you think the word machine learning, the location of the word learning that is appearing after machine will get this output, or will get the location of this output when I'll run this find function. All right. All right. So let's execute this, right? Let's execute this and let's try to find out. Okay. And let's take votes for those of you who think the location of both the words will be traced out using the find function. We'll get the location of both the words. All right. All right. All right. Great. Great. All right. So let's execute this and let's try to find out the location of which word we are getting. Right. So let's say if I execute this, we are getting 6 as the output, which is basically it's giving me the location of the first word learning. Right. So I is appearing at location 1, followed by a white space, followed by 2 characters long word, which is am, right? So this is 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 4, followed by a white space, which is 5, and learning is appearing at the 6th position. Right? So this is giving me the location of the first learning word. All right. And if you, let's say, if you look at this, about if you focus on the docstring of the find word, I hope everyone is able to see this, right? Because I will not be able to zoom in this, right? So I hope everyone is able to see the docstring here. It clearly says that find is case sensitive. When I say it's case sensitive, this basically means when I'm passing learning with small l, it is tracing out the first word here, right? At the same time, let's say if we go for the word learning with capital L, right? Let me just extend this here, right? And we find R2 instead of R2, this will be in Q2, right? So this is the output, all right? And let's try to find the location of the word learning with capital L, right? So this is at 79th position. So if you start counting from 1 here, this word learning, which is part of machine learning, will appear at 79th position. All right. And in the similar way, you can find how many total number of characters are present here, right? So this will be, this can easily be found out using the len function, right? So len function basically gives you the length of a string, right? So if I execute this, if I pass this text here, I'll get the total number of characters, which is 103, right? So if you start counting from one I here, right? If you start counting from I as 1, you'll get that there are total number of 103 characters present as a part of this particular string or text, right? So this is how you can use the find function to find any particular word. All right. Now, let's say I'm trying to find any word here that is not part of this string, right? So let's say I try to find using the find function, maybe someone's name, maybe Aman, right? Which is not present in this particular string. What will happen in this case? Right? What will happen in this case? So here it will give you a value error, which basically means that the word that you're trying to find does not exist into the string, right? Which is why you're getting a value error. Right? The formula is executed correctly. That is why you're not getting any options to rectify the error, right? You can get an error as well, but here you're getting a value error, which basically means the value that you're trying to find in the string does not exist. Right? Now, okay, some of you are asking if we try to find a particular word which is appearing 2 times into the same document, so what will happen in that case? So in that particular case, what will happen is the first appearing word, the location of the first appearing word will be identified as the output. right? So for example, let's say instead of Aman, if I try to find here, right? Let's try to find the word learn, right? So what will happen here is, okay, let's take the words for everyone who thinks that this particular learn word will be identified, which is appearing before about. The location of this word will be identified. You can simply raise your hands if you think this learn word will be identified when I try to find learn in Q2 here. You can simply raise your hands if you think the learn that appearing before about will, you'll get this, the location of this word as the output. Okay. Let's lower everyone's hands now. Okay, let's take votes for everyone who thinks that the location of the word learn that is appearing in learning, you'll get this particular location that is appearing before Microsoft. You can simply raise your hands if you think the word learn that is appearing in learning, which is before Microsoft, you'll get the location of this output. Okay. Let's lower everyone's hands now. Okay, let's execute this, right? Let's execute this. You'll understand why something, what exactly you're getting the output, right? So you're getting the output as 6 here. So basically it's tracing out the word learn that is part of learning, which is appearing before Microsoft, right? So basically it will, even if you try to find any word that is appearing as a subset of a particular word. For example, let's say instead of learn, if I try to find the word earn, right? So this earn will also appear in, since it's appearing in the word learning, which is why the location of the word earn will be appearing in from the word learning that is appearing before Microsoft. So get the location of this word, right? So it is not required for you to type the complete word. You can find a substring that you want to search, right? So for example, instead of searching earn, if I search soft, which is part of Microsoft, right? You'll get the location of the word soft as well, right? This is present at 20th index location. Right? So this is how you are going to find any particular word which is part of a substring in any given sentence, right? And these sentences are called documents. Right? So, okay, one of you is asking, why is it not capturing the second one? As I've already informed, the output will be given in the order in which they are appearing, right? So it will always give you the location of the first appearance of that particular word, right? Otherwise, for example, let's say instead of soft, if I try to find the word, I try to find this word, right? So if I try to find this particular word, I hope everyone is able to see my screen. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. So if I try to find this particular letter A, right? This letter is appearing at least more than 10 times in this particular sentence. So that does not mean it is going to give me 10 different locations as output, right? It is going to give me only one single location, and this will be the first appearance of the word A, right? And the first appearance of the word A is present at index location 3, right? So I should get 3 as the output here, right? Which is the part of am. This A that is appearing here is at index location 3, right? So all right, so I hope the find function is clear to everyone. You can simply raise your hands to confirm if you are able to understand how find function works. All right, great. All right, so let's proceed ahead and try to use another function, right, which is search function in text data again, right? So if you, let's say, if I search here about the search function, right? So this is the search function that will help you to find the location of any particular word again, like how you can find using the find function. In the similar way, you can use the search function to find any particular word, right? So let me just right. So here, as we are getting this using the find function, in the similar way, you can use the search function as well to use to get the output, right? So if you read the doc string again, it returns you the number of character at which the specific character or text string is first found, right? Reading from left to right, and this is not case sensitive. Like how your find function is case sensitive, your search function is not case sensitive, and it is going to do the exact same thing that your find function is doing. The only difference is your search function is not case sensitive, but your find function is case sensitive, right? So for example, let's say, let me use the find function and let me use the word Microsoft with small m, right? And let's try to find this word into this particular string. If I do this, it is throwing me a value error because Microsoft is present with capital M and your find function is case sensitive. All right. Now, let's try to search the same thing using the search function. Right. So let me use the search function here. And here also I have mentioned the find text. I'll mention, let's say, Excel. Right. Let me put it in the capital letters. Right. So since it is not case sensitive, what I'll do is let me put this down in capital letters, right? And let's try to find this in this particular text. Let's see if this function is really case sensitive or not, right? So if I execute this, I'm getting the same output, but the word that I'm searching here is Excel in capital letters, right? In uppercase. Still, I'm getting this output because search function is not case sensitive, right? In the similar way, you can proceed ahead, finding about, maybe searching about using the search function, and you can search maybe the word learning, right? And you can find this word here, you'll find the same location, right? So this is how your search function works, and it is, since it is not case sensitive, so you can use in any case, and you'll be able to get the relevant output. Right, so this is the only difference between search function and find function in Excel. Right, and there is of course There is, of course, if you press Control and F in Excel, right, you have the find and replace function, right? So you have find and replace function. So this is the find and replace function. You can directly access it from here. If you want to replace some particular word with some another word, you're free to do. Let's say, let's try to find the word learning, right? If I click on find all, it will give me all the appearances of the word learning that is appearing, right? So it is present in S1. So let's try to locate. This is S1, right? It is also present in T1. This is the word T1, right? The third is in Q2. This is present in Q2, this particular string. Next is at S2. So this is also present in the part of the formula, right? Next is, let's say, this is in T2. So this is the location of the word T2, right? If you want to replace it with some other value, maybe let's try to replace it with maybe the word learning with not learning, right? So I can replace this particular word into various cells. I can either replace it one by one, or what can be done is I can replace all at once using the replace all function, right? So if I click on replace all of them has been replaced, and it clearly says we have made 6 replacements, right? So there were total 6 cells in which learning was found, and all the words learning has been replaced with not learning, right? So here you can see I am not learning Microsoft Excel, right? And in the similar way, we were searching for this word not learning has been replaced with not learning, right? In the similar way, here also it has been replaced with not learning. In this particular formula as well, it's replaced with not learning. So you have to keep this in mind. If you, let's say, use find and replace function of Excel, and if we replace all the outputs where the word has been found, right, it will also be replaced in the formulas as well. So you have to keep this in mind when you're working with a large amount of data. You don't make any mistakes, which is why you have to just replace the words one by one if you're trying to use the find and replace function of Excel. Right? So yes, find and search functions are exactly same. The only difference is search function is not case sensitive, while your find function is case sensitive. All right. Okay, one of you is asking what is the usage of this in data science. This will help you in data cleaning, right? When you'll be dealing with cleaning of the data, when you're dealing with text form of data, right? So you need to clean data before you can analyze, before you can basically proceed ahead with data analysis. You have to clean the data, right? So this part, these functions will help you in data cleaning when you're dealing with text form of data, right? And how, let's say, analysis of data is to be performed and so on. This you'll learn in your natural language processing, right? How text form of data can be analyzed. Your machine can learn the complete, it can basically learn from the complete text that you're providing as input, right? And it will be able to train itself to give you any kind of output. Right. So if you want to, okay, so if you want to find out the other locations of these words, maybe for example, let's say if you're trying to find not learning, and if you want to find other locations as well. So this basically, you cannot do it in Excel, but you can do it in Python, right? There's a module called regular expressions. It is a pattern matching module. You'll learn this in your Python sessions. There's a module called regular expressions, right? So these regular expression module will help you in pattern matching, because every word is either a combination of consonants or vowels, right? So we'll be using the wildcard characters there to find patterns in the text, and your machine will be able to learn from that pattern of data. All right, so let's proceed ahead with discussions of other functions. All right, and guys, I've already informed it is not advised to practice along with the session, because since you're learning this for the first time, so you'll face a lot of difficulties, right? So let the session go according to the flow, right? And you can practice after this by following the recording of this particular session, right? It is never advised to walk along with the session. Right. So guys, I have already informed why we did not get this output, because we are using find function and Microsoft is present with capital with small m here, right? And Microsoft in this string is present with capital M. And since it is case sensitive, which is why we are not getting any output using the find function. If you do the same using the search function, you'll get the output, right? So if you search for the word Microsoft, right? If you search for this word Microsoft in Q2 using the search function, you'll get the output, but you'll not get it using find function, because find function is case sensitive. All right, so let's proceed ahead with other functions where you can deal with the text form of data. All right. All right, so basically, let's go for a few important formulas here, which are the lookup formulas. All right, lookup and references formulas. So here, what we are trying to do is I've created this table here, right? And these values have been randomly taken from the employee ID from the data set that we were discussing, right, from earlier, right? This is the data that we were discussing earlier. Let me delete this column because it is not required. All right, now, basically, let's say if I give you this particular task, that this is the employee ID, right? You need to find the name of the employee, the gender of the employee, designation, department in which the employee works, right? The business unit and the joining date of this employee. So how you are going to get this, right? So this is where the lookup function comes into picture, right? So there's something called as VLOOKUP, right? So VLOOKUP is basically a function that will help you to identify the records of a table and give you the relevant outputs, right? So it basically requires 4 inputs to be provided. All right, the first input is the lookup value, the value that you want to search. All right, so for example, okay, let's take the example later. Let me explain you what these parameters basically mean. Right, so lookup is basically the value that you want to search. It clearly says lookup value. Right, next, next parameter is the table array. So the table array is basically the table into which you want to look for this particular value that you have put down in lookup value. Right, the third parameter is column index number. So the output that you want. I saw a few. Okay, let me just show you in the formula bar itself, right? So we have this VLOOKUP, right? So VLOOKUP is basically a function, right? It requires lookup value. Lookup value is basically a value that you want to find into a particular table, right? Table array is basically the table into which you want to find this lookup value. All right. Now the third is the column index number. So column index number is basically the output that you want if this value is found. If this value is found in this table, you have to mention the column index number, basically the output that you want from that particular table, right? And this is the range lookup. Only two outputs has to be basically the input is provided only in two formats, which are Boolean values, which is either true or false, right? So for example, let's say the value that you have put here, if you want the exact match, you have to put the range lookup as false. And if you want to see the approximate match, then you can put the value as true, right? So let's see an example. This will be more easy for you to understand, right? Always examples are better to understand a particular function, right? So this is the VLOOKUP function that we are working on. The first value that we want to input, or the first parameter, is the lookup value. So I want to look for this particular value, which is the employee ID of any employee. I don't know what is the employee, right? Who is the employee? I don't know. I just want the name of this employee. All right. Now, next is the table into which I want to search for this particular employee ID. So I'll simply mention the complete employee table, right? I want to search into this particular table here after the resignation date. So this is the table into which I want to search for the employee ID that I've already mentioned, right? Now, third is the column index number. So this is the output that I want to generate, right? So let's see the formula. Here I want employee name as the output, right? So let's try to find what is the employee name column present at which column index number, right? So employee ID is present at column index number 1. Employee name is present at column index number 2. Designation is present at column index number 3. Department is present at column index number 4. Business unit is present in column index number 5, and so on and so forth, right? So since I want the employee name, which is present at column index number 2, I'll simply put 2 here, right? I'll simply put 2 here, followed by the final input, all right, followed by the final input. Okay, I think something went wrong here. So I'll simply go with VLOOKUP, right? This is the lookup value I want to search for. Let me mention the column index number, basically the table range, right? So this will be up till the resignation date, followed by the lookup in column index number, which is 2, which will give me the name of the employee. If this record is found, and I have to mention the last value, which is the lookup range, right? So the range lookup, so I simply have to mention either true or false based on whether I want to see the exact match or I want to see the approximate match. So I'm looking for an exact match, hence I'll put a false here, right? So it clearly says you simply put false for exact match and you put true for approximate match. So since I'm looking for an exact match, I'll simply mention here false, right? Now, if I execute this, this is the name of the employee that I've got with this particular employee ID, right? So this is where your VLOOKUP function helps you to find a particular value from any other column based on the value present in some other column, right? So let's see whether we have found the correct output or not. Let me copy this. Let's use the find and replace function and try to find let's try to find, right? I simply want to find here this particular employee ID. Right, so let me find all. So there are only two records. First is present in Q11. So this is Q11 and second is present in A43. So this is A43, right? This is A43. The name of the employee here, A43. This is the employee ID and this is the name of the employee, which is Cameron Young, right? And the output that we have got is also Cameron Young. Right, so the name of the employee that we have got is perfectly correct. Right, let's find the gender of the same employee. Right, again I'll look for the VLOOKUP function. I'm going to look up for this particular value. Right, the table will remain same. So I'm going to pass again all the columns of the data followed by the column index number that I want as the output. So here I have to find the gender, right? So, okay, employee ID is present at index location 1, name is present at index location 2, designation at 3, department at 4, business unit at 5, and gender at 6. I want sixth column as the output. Right? And finally, I want the exact match. Hence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put false as the output, right? So let's execute this. And the gender of this employee is male, right? So we can basically cross check this. It was present at 43, right? So the gender is male here, right? This is the column, right? And his vice president, the designation is vice president working in the engineering department and manufacturing unit, right? So we can basically check the same. Right, so what I'll do is I'll simply mention, let's say it is at 2, just for reference, right? I'll simply mention the index location here so that I don't have to mention every time. Let's try to find the designation using VLOOKUP, right? So I want to look up for this particular employee code in the table from A to N, right? Followed by the index location. Okay, we want designation. So 1, 2, 3, right? So we want the value as 3 and we'll search for the exact match, right? So the designation of this particular employee is vice president, right? In the engineering department and in the manufacturing business unit. So since we are searching only for designation, vice president should be the output, right? So this is the vice president as the output here. All right. Okay, so one of you is asking if you can do maybe Control F. Okay, Control F is basically used to find a particular record into a table, right? So VLOOKUP is basically used when you want to search for different values in different tables, right? Here I'm showing you using one particular example only. That is why you are seeing this. What I'll do is let me copy and paste this complete code here into a new worksheet, right? So let's say if you want to do it in this particular sheet, how you're going to use Control F here. Let's say if I ask you to print out the department of this employee, right? How you're going to do it. Right, so I hope this part is clear now, why we are using this. Right, at the same time, we can again use the VLOOKUP. We have to search for this particular value, right? And the table into which we want to search is this particular table that is present in a completely different sheet. Right, this is the table. Column index number is basically, I believe it is the department that we are searching for, right? So it is 1, 2, 3, 4. We want 4 plus false for the exact match, right? So this is from the engineering department. Same goes with here. We'll search for the business unit, right? We can again use the VLOOKUP function, and this is the name of the employee. Right, the table will remain from this particular sheet, right? This is from A to N, followed by the column index number. Business unit will be 5, followed by, we are looking for an exact match, right? So this is from the manufacturing business unit. All right. And finally, we need to find the joining date of this employee. Right. So we'll again use the VLOOKUP function. We'll search for this particular employee code, followed by the table. So this is the table on which you have to search, followed by the column index number for joining date. Right. So joining date is present at I, which is at 9. Right. So let me just calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. And for exact match, I'm going to search for. So this is the joining date of this employee. Right. So these are the records. Okay. So basically you have to format it as a date. You'll get the correct output. Maybe like this, or let's see a long form of date. Right. So this is the joining date of this employee. Right. So this is how you can basically find all the records from another table. Right. If you want records matching from 2 different tables, you can simply use VLOOKUP. Right. So this is at 9. All right. So what we are going to do is, instead of putting 2 here, I'll simply put this particular value. Right. And we'll fix this. And how do we fix this? We'll simply add the $sign. I hope you remember how we are going to fix it. Right. The similar way here also, instead of putting the 6, we'll put the reference cell here. And here also we are going to fix this, followed by this particular value. Instead of putting 3, we'll put the reference cell here and we'll add this $sign. Right, we'll add this $sign here. Same goes with all other columns. Right, so we are basically trying to fix this. Instead of taking reference every single time, we'll simply fix it so that we don't have to make these changes again and again. Right. So here, if I, let's say, double click here, I've got all the name of the employees referring to these cell numbers. In the similar way, if I double click here, I'll get all the records from the gender column, which will basically represent the gender of each of these employees. Right. Same goes with designation here. Same goes with the department column. Same goes with the manufacturing, or basically it is the business unit, right? And same goes with the joining date. So this is how you can find the record of all the employees. If you are able to find the record of one employee and you have used the right reference to mention the name of the reference part. All right, so okay, one of you is asking, if the searching element is on the last column of the Excel sheet, then you have to mention the reference of the last column of the Excel sheet, right? Let's say if for example, let's say what you're asking is, let's say if this employee ID is present instead of here, it's present in the last column here, right? So you have to mention the reference cell. It does not matter whether it is on the first cell, second cell, third cell, or on which column it is. All right. Now, the second thing is, if what you're trying to say is, let's say if the output that you want is instead of in the first column or second column or third column of the table, if you want to find this, whether it is on the last column, then you have to mention the last column here instead of B1. Sorry, not instead of B1, instead of this. Instead of B1, right? So B1 contains the value 2. This is the name of the column which you want as output, right? So since it is the employee name, which is present at index location 2, which is why we are mentioning this 2 here. If it is present in the last column, simply find the total number of rows, columns, and you'll get the total number of columns. I hope you already remember the total number of rows and columns, how you can find. We have already seen this, right? So for example, if you want to see the total number of rows and columns in Excel, you can easily find it using, can anyone say? It is using the count blank function. Count blank function will basically give you the total number of blank cells, right? So this will give you the total number of rows here. These are the total number of rows. If you want total number of columns, simply use the count blank function on any of the rows here. This will give you the total number of columns, right? So you have 16,384 columns, right? So you simply have to mention the index location of the column from which you want the output, right? So this is how you can do it. The only thing you have to keep in mind is in lookup functions, you have to mention the index location here, or you simply have to mention the reference cells, right? So a reference cell also contains the index location. It's nothing new, right? We have already discussed this. So this is the only thing you have to keep in mind. At the time of VLOOKUP, can we press F4? Of course, you can press F4 to fix the values, right? F4 is basically used to fix the reference of these cells, right? So you can simply select this, press F4, and the dollar sign will automatically be added, right? So this has nothing to do with the function, right? It is the general implementation of the, it's an added functionality of Excel. It has nothing to do with what formula you are using. If you want to fix a cell, you can directly take the reference and press F4. The cell will be fixed. All right. So if you want to look up from left to right, how do you do that? So basically, see my table, since it's present in the vertical format, which is why I'm using VLOOKUP. If at the same time, if this particular table is present in horizontal format, I'll be using the HLOOKUP, right? VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP are exactly same. The only difference is the format in which your table is present, you have to use that particular format, right? Let's say if I apply the transpose function on the complete table, my rows will be converted to columns and columns will be converted to rows. Right, so it has nothing to do with what you want to use, right? So you can basically, let's say, you can go to the formulas here, right? Simply, maybe you can search for a formula. Let's see. All right, so not this, but the transpose that you see here, right? It converts a vertical range of cells to horizontal range of cells or vice versa. So you can simply apply this transpose function to any given row and it will be converted to columns, right? So basically I have to pass the arrays here. Maybe let's say if I want, this is present in this particular format, right? Let's say if I want to change this to columns here, I can simply apply the transpose function on this data. Right? You can simply apply the transpose function here. Right? So what I'll do is I'll simply select this transpose function and I'll mention this data, right? So this will be converted to rows and columns. Right, so not maybe let's select one column at a time. Right, so I think it should work, right? The transpose function. Right, so I think this should work, where we have to select the total range of cells, those are required. Right, so this is basically from 3 to 10, 7, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yes, I think I can apply this transpose function here. Select this cell. This should work most probably. Hmm. Right, so basically transpose is used to convert rows to columns and columns to rows. Right, so I think it should work, but it is. Maybe let's try this. All right, so the whole motive here is you uh, simply have to use the VLOOKUP when the data is presented in the vertical format like this, right? At the same time, if the data is present in horizontal format, maybe in this particular format, right? So you can simply use the HLOOKUP function, which is basically HLOOKUP, right? It also needs the exact same parameters that VLOOKUP requires, right? Only the difference is your VLOOKUP will search for the values in the vertical format or in a vertical table, and your HLOOKUP will search for the table values in the horizontal table, right? This is the only difference. Otherwise, rest of the outputs will be exactly same. Right? This is the only difference between HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. All right, so I hope everyone is able to understand how VLOOKUP works, how you can basically use VLOOKUP to search for a particular value, right? You can simply raise your hands to confirm this if you're able to understand how VLOOKUP works. All right, great, great. So yes, guys, take 5 minutes of break and then we'll proceed ahead discussing about a few more functions that will be helpful for you in analysis of the data, right? And take a 5 minutes of break, then we'll proceed ahead. All right, guys. So let's proceed ahead with the discussions further. Right. So I hope everyone is able to understand the VLOOKUP. Right. So okay, some of you are asking for HLOOKUP. So let's do this thing. That let me format it as tables first. Right. So these are basically the outputs that we are getting. Right. And and yes, here what can be done is you can simply select the complete table, right? And you can select the equivalent amount of number of rows and columns. So we are having these are 9 rows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns, right? So we can basically select equivalent number of rows and columns here. So these will be 7 rows, right? So these will be 7 rows and 9 columns like this. Then you can use a transpose function here, right? So transpose function can basically be used, and you have to basically now select the data that you want to convert, right? And then you have to simply select the rows and columns here, right? So you can clearly see the rows have been converted to columns here, right? And since this is an extra cell that is selected, so I'll simply delete. All right, so this is just an extra cell that has been selected, right? So now since the data is present here in the form of rows and columns, right? So using transpose, when you're using transpose, you simply have to use the control shift enter instead of pressing enter directly, right? So this is the thing I missed out on, right? So when you're using a transpose function, you simply have to use the control shift and enter to execute the commands. So this way your rows will be converted to columns and columns will be converted to rows. All right, now you can simply use HLOOKUP. For example, let's say we want to look up for this particular, let's say we want to search for this particular ID here, 04779. Right? If you want the name of this particular employee, right? If we want the name of this particular employee, we can simply use the HLOOKUP and we can mention the employee ID here, the table that we want to search into. So this will be the table that we want to search into, right? This will be followed by the row number that we want as output. Let's say this will be row number 2, which will give me the name of the employee. And since I want the exact match, I'll be simply putting false as the output, right? And this is giving me the name of this particular employee, right? So your HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP, they basically work in the exact same way. The only difference is when your data is present in the vertical format, you'll be using the VLOOKUP. When your data is present in horizontal format, you'll be using the HLOOKUP, right? This is the only difference. Right? So even if, let's say, the employee ID is present in any other column, then also you can simply use that particular, use VLOOKUP to get the output, right? So for example, let's say instead of employee ID present here, if your, let's say, employee ID is present here, right? You can use VLOOKUP. That is absolutely not a problem. You can simply select this cell. You can mention the sheet that you want to search for, right? This is the data that I want to search for, the output, I have to simply mention the column index number that I want as output. Right, so let's see, let's take 3 as the output, which will give me the designation of this particular employee, and I'll be using false as the final parameter because I want to see the exact match. Right, so this will give me the designation of this particular employee, which is vice president. Right, so this is exactly what we are getting here. So this does not matter whether your rows are present towards the right or towards the left. It is just the reference of the cell that has to be mentioned correctly. All right, so this is the only thing that you need to keep in mind while using the lookup functions. All right, so VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, I've already mentioned, they both work in the same way. The only difference is the VLOOKUP will be used when your data is present into vertical format like this, right, where each of your columns will contain the same records, whereas your lookup will work when your data is present in horizontal format, right, where your each of the rows contain the same format, right? For example, the employee ID is present here in the form of rows, but here employee ID is present in the form of columns, right? So this is the only difference. Otherwise, VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, they work in the exact same way. All right, so let's proceed ahead with working with the conditional formatting. Right, so this data is already sorted. So what we'll do is, right, so what we'll do is, let's say conditional formatting is basically used into various for various reasons, and this is the part, like you can see the conditional formatting here. You can simply click here and there are multiple types of formatting that can be applied based on a rule that you define, right? So for example, let's say if I want to highlight all these cells, let's take the age column, right? And I'll highlight the cells based on various conditions, right? And I'll simply use highlight cell rules, right? So let's say I'll select between, so anywhere the cell is present between the range of, maybe let's try to highlight all the employees whose age is between 24 and let's say 30, right? And let's highlight these cells with red fill and red text. If I click OK, all the employees whose age is between 24 and 30 will be highlighted in red color. If I scroll down here, right, you'll see all these employees have been highlighted with red. So these are basically for the easy identification of any particular record, right? So maybe you can format this based on the salary as well, right? Based on age. And this is how conditional formatting works. There are other rules as well, right? So you can maybe highlight them from top to bottom, right? Below average, above average, like this, right? There are already rules defined. You can define a rule on your own to highlight the cells or to, let's say, filter out the data so that they are clearly highlighted. And once they are highlighted, they are very easy to identify in a particular data set, right? You can also use color scales, right? Like this, from top to bottom, bottom to top, based on a particular rule, right? So that 65 is being highlighted like this. You can select a range of cells, then you can select maybe the color schemes, right? So this will be highlighted in the form of scheme of a color, right? So this purely is based on what kind of formatting you want to apply on the data so that you can easily identify the data sets, right? So what we'll do is, let's apply this on the salary column, right? Or let's apply this on hike column. Let's highlight all the employees who have received 0% hike with red background, right? So what I'll do is I'll simply go to highlight cells, and I'll simply mention equal to, right? And I'll simply mention 0 here. All these will be all the cells or all the employees who have received 0% hike will be highlighted with red in color, right? So let's light red fill only. Let's keep the font color as same as before, right? So if I click here, all the employees who have received 0% hike have been highlighted with red color, right? And let's select the same column again, go to the highlight option, and let's say those who have received from, let's say, 1% hike to 10% hike, will highlight them with yellow color, right? So yellow fill and yellow background like this. So if I click here, all the employees who have received the hike between 1% to 10% will be highlighted in yellow. So let's try and figure out. Okay, so seems like it did not work. Right, so I have to mention, let's say 1 and 10 will highlight this with yellow color. I click OK. Let's apply the conditional formatting based on between, right? And we'll simply mention from 1 to 10. Let's highlight them with yellow color. Let's see if this works. Okay, so let's format them as numbers first. Okay, so let's format them as percentage. Okay, and we'll reduce the number of characters. Okay, so right. So why this is not working is basically because it's highlighted as percentage. Let me move it to general. Right. So now it's highlighted as numbers because it was earlier highlighted as percentage, right? So even if we, let's say, even if I highlight them as percentage, so percentage is basically from this 20% basically means in the form of numbers, it is 0.02, right? Which is why it was not highlighting, right? Because it was not highlighted as a number. Now we can apply the conditional formatting. Maybe when it's equal to 0, let's highlight it as red. Sorry, not this, but this column, right? So when it's equals to 0, it will be highlighted as red, right? And everyone receive high greater than maybe 20%, will highlight them with dark green color, right? Like this. So every value which is greater than 20 is highlighted as green. So this is how your conditional formatting can easily be applied, right? The only condition where it's not mentioned is between 10 to 20, right? You can apply maybe some formatting for that as well, and all your cells will be highlighted correctly. maybe between 10 and 20. Let's highlight them with some custom color. Maybe purple color and blue in color background. Right. So font will be like this. Right. So all these values have been highlighted with blue between 10 and 20. Right. So this way you can basically highlight all these cells based on a particular condition. All right. So yes, this is how you can basically apply formatting to a particular data based on whatever value you want to apply to. Maybe you can apply the conditional formatting on this as well. Right, you can highlight the value based on equal to, right, or text that contains. Maybe if you want to highlight all the Asian people with green and dark green, so this can also be done. And since Caucasian also contains the word Asian, right, which is why the green is highlighted with Caucasian as well. Right, so you can basically, that if we undo this, you can mention equal to, right, and this will help you to highlight all the cells that contains exact same value, right, like this. So yes, this is how you can basically apply the conditional formatting. All right, the same can be applied on other columns as well. Maybe on the joining date, you can simply filter a particular date or decide a particular threshold, and someone who has joined before that and someone who has joined after a particular threshold date will be highlighted with different colors. So this is how conditional formatting is used, and it will be helpful when you want to identify a particular data, right, based on their values. All right. So yes, guys, that was all for today's session. And as already mentioned in the yesterday's session, on next weekend, you're going to have extra classes from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. And please remember, these are extra classes. Your regular sessions will run as usual. All right. So next Saturday and Sunday, you're going to have 2 sessions per day, which is from 4 to 6 and 9:30 to 11:30. This is only for next weekend. And from next to next weekend, your regular sessions will go on at your regular scheduled timings. All right. So yes, guys, that was all for today's session. If anyone has any doubts, I'm waiting for, let's say, 5 more minutes. You are free to clarify your doubts. Otherwise, we are not going to discuss anything new. So if anyone wishes to leave the session, you're free to do so. Right. All right, so no homeworks for today, right? The homeworks will be uploaded in your GitHub link, right? I'll provide you a few homework based on the VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. All right. So yes, QNS is not covered as of now. We'll be covering it in the extra classes that will be conducted on next weekend. Right, we'll cover about the moments. We'll cover about basically 4 topics are left. I'll just give you the idea. Only 4 topics are left. First is the moments. Right, in moments we have the first moment, which is called the mean of the data. We have the second moment, which is called the variance of the data. Right, along with variance, we'll understand what is standard deviation in the data set. Right. Next comes the third moment. Third moment is basically the skewness of the data. And finally, we have the fourth moment called the kurtosis of the data set. Right. So we'll elaborate what these exactly are and how they can help you to identify the difference and how they will help you to analyze the data. Right. Apart from this, we'll be discussing about the inferential statistics. Only 2 topics. First is the covariance and second is the correlation, right? So these are the only topics, those are left. We'll be covering this in the next 2 sessions in your extra classes, right? And in your regular sessions, your next module will start, which is programming foundation, right? Where you'll learn how any programming language works and how you can build logics in programming, right? So these topics will be covered from 4 to 6 p.m. IST in your extra classes, right? And in the next, and in your regular sessions, these topics will start from next weekend. All right, so please be clear with this. You'll have 2 sessions per day only for next weekend, right? If you're attending classes from any other time zone, you please convert 4 to 6 p.m. IST into your time zone. Right. Okay. One of you is asking about the transpose command one more time. So transpose function, how it works is, what transpose exactly does is basically transpose with, let me just write this down here. It will convert rows to columns and columns to rows, right? So this is vice versa. Because once your rows are converted to columns, your columns will automatically be converted to rows, right? This is exactly what transpose function does. And this particular transpose function you learn everywhere in Python as well. You have already covered this in Excel. You'll cover this in Pandas. You'll cover this in NumPy, right? You'll also cover this in TensorFlow, right? Everywhere this function works in the exact same way. And this is basically, this function has been picked up from, if any one of you is from mathematical background, this was in the linear algebra, right? So this function has been taken from linear algebra from the matrix section, right? So this function works exactly same way everywhere, and you learn this function almost everywhere, even in the statistics that you learn using the stats model, right? Or maybe the scientific Python module, right? So this function is available everywhere, and this will work exactly same way. What transpose function does is it will convert your rows to columns and columns to rows. All right, so in SQL and Python, you do not have to use Excel formulas, but yes, everywhere we'll be working on almost the same concept. Analysis of the data will remain same, only the implementation method will be different. For example, how you have used the sum function here, how you have used the average function, how you have used the percentile function, how you have used the quartile function, all these concepts remain same. The only difference is of the implementation. In Excel, you are simply using equal to and using the sum function, right, to execute this. And let's say if you'll be working the same in Python, you'll directly use something called as math module. And from this math module, you'll be using the sum function, right? Let's say when you'll be using NumPy, you'll simply use NumPy dot sum like this, right? In pandas as well, you'll use pandas dot sum. So the function will remain same, right? Only the way of writing is different, right? The concept will always remain same. Sum basically means you're going to add numbers. So you can add numbers in everywhere of these modules, right? You'll learn this in the coming times, how only the interface is different. Right. So, okay, one of you is asking what is the agenda of extra class? This will be the agenda of the extra class. We'll cover these topics. All right. So, okay, one of you is asking what is the most used function while analysis of the data? Is it the lookup tables or the pivot table? It purely depends what kind of analysis you are doing, right? Otherwise, the mostly used analysis is the regression analysis. And while you are doing regression analysis, all of these will be used, right? Every function that you have learned will be used in the regression analysis, right? So you'll learn regression analysis in machine learning, right? This is just the data cleaning and basic statistical analysis that you're doing on Excel, right? You'll carry out the same analysis on any other platform, any other module that you'll be using related to Python, be it NumPy, be it TensorFlow, be it, let's say, Pandas, be it SciPy, be it stats models, right? Be it the general Python programming language. Everywhere, the analysis of the data is used. Right? When to use VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, this purely depends on the problem statement. If you are trying to find any output on one table based on the references that is taken from some another table, right? In those cases, you will be using the lookup function. If you read the lookup functions, it is basically the references formulas, right? So this purely depends on what kind of data you're dealing with, right? And what kind of questions you'll be able to solve, right? This purely depends on use to use cases. It is very equivalently what you're trying to ask is, let's say, whether I have to add two numbers or multiply two numbers, which is used mostly in mathematics. This purely depends on the use case, right? If you want to, the cases where you need to multiply numbers, you use the multiplication part, and the cases where you need to find some of the numbers, you need to use the addition part, right? So this is purely case dependent. There's nothing as such or rule of thumb that this particular thing has to be used every time. All right. So, okay, one of you is asking, can we use different type of visualization? Of course, you can use different types of visualization in Excel, right? And there is very limited form of visualization that is available. If you go to this insert and see all the types of visualization, you have very handful type of visualizations available. There are a lot more forms of visualization that is that you'll learn in Python. You'll cover something called as matplotlib, and Seaborn, right? Where these two are purely the visualization libraries where we'll plot different kinds of plots, right? So you learn various types of visualization in matplotlib and Seaborn when it will be covered in Python. All right, so I've already mentioned homework is not required to be submitted. It is for self-evaluation. The only solution to the homework that is left, I think I've discussed all these homeworks here. The only homework that is left is this particular part, right? I'll upload the solution of this homework in your GitHub link itself. Your homework is not required to be submitted. It is purely for self-evaluation. All right, guys, so I'm sharing this GitHub link with everyone. All right. I've shared this GitHub link almost in every session 2 times, right? And still a few of you are asking for this link. I'm sharing this GitHub link with everyone, right? If you have not saved it, save it for your future references, right? All the assignments I will be sharing, these assignments will be uploaded on this GitHub link only. All right, so this is the GitHub link I'm sharing with everyone. All right, guys. So since I've answered everyone's queries, we are wrapping up the session for today, right? So thank you everyone for joining the session and have a good night.